Hey, my name is Millen Hurrion. I spent my first 2 years at Gardner Webb University in North Carolina before transferring to the University of Kentucky for my last 3 years, and now I'm playing pro tennis out of Bath University.
Millen, thanks so much for taking the time today to do this interview. So take us back to your junior career. What kind of tournaments did you compete in? Where did you train and who guided you?
In juniors, I wasn't like a top player. I wasn't ranked that highly. I trained in Dorset majority of the time at David Lloyd Pool with my long-term coach Brett Townsend, and as I progressed from 16 and unders to 18 and unders, I started to access Bath University twice a week, and that was really good because I mixed with the players that were full-time and did my A-levels back in Dorset and would mix with those guys and get a taste of what that was like. And around that time I was doing grade 3 men's events, British Tour, qualifying most of the time, and when I did play my age group it was mainly grade 2s and grade 1s.
And at what point did you decide that the US college system was for you?
To be honest, I decided pretty early on because, like I said, I wasn't full-time, so financially we found it quite tough to travel around and train and kind of balance that. So probably when I was around 12 and unders or 14 and unders, it was something that was realistic that I wanted to work towards, and kind of in my head the goal was to go to college, get a scholarship and kind of play catch up and kind of work my butt off during those 4 years and catch up with the kids that were doing more than me early on in juniors.
And how did you get involved with Pippa? Like, how did you meet her and get, on board with Stars and Stripes?
So I can't remember which tournament I met Pippa at, but it was definitely at a tournament. I know I saw her lots of times throughout, even before signing with her. But yeah, that's how I met her, and it was good to see her so frequently, and she knew all my results, and kind of just to know her personally as well, it gave me a lot more trust in her and what she was doing with Stars and Stripes.
Right, so she was like really at all the junior events and like getting to know players and stuff.
Yeah, not just at the junior events, but the British tours as well. There was a good group of us juniors that were playing up, so she would always show her face, and Pippa knows everyone, so it was good, and I actually met a lot of people through Pippa, which was cool.
And as you began the process, what help did you receive? Like video advice, tournament guidance? Did she, kind of discuss all aspects of the college life with you in terms of helping you with what grades you needed to get, or, visa help? What was that process like?
Yeah, so I tell a lot of people, without Pippa, I don't really know what I would have done because I didn't really know anything going into the process. So she did make it a lot easier, especially with the paperwork side of things and like the legislation in terms of the visa stuff. I can't imagine really doing that without her. And on the side of school, I took 2 A-levels, which is a bit different because, as I said earlier, I was accessing Bath twice a week. So she made sure that was viable for me to still go to America, and in terms of UTR, getting that as high as possible with certain tournaments and playing up into men's events, and definitely with the video as well, what college coaches are looking for, not making it too long and also not making it almost too perfect. You want it to kind of showcase your actual level. So yeah.
And she must have helped you as well with deciding what schools to kind of visit and get your list down. With your visits, where did you go and why those universities? And tell us more about what you learned on those visits and why you chose, Gardner Webb originally.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that I did with Pippa at the start was she sent me a questionnaire, kind of what I was looking for. And it goes far beyond just tennis. It's size of school, location, kind of what field, not necessarily degree, but what field I was looking to study in, what kind of coach I was looking after. So right from the start, she kind of narrowed it down and got a good idea in her head what would be a good fit for me. So I didn't speak to actually a ton of schools. I had surgery the same year that I went out to college, and that definitely narrowed down my search. But I did visit my first year of A-level, so when I was 16, 17, I visited Gardner Webb University, where I ended up attending my first 2 years. That was in North Carolina. That was a really small school with about 2,000 students, and I knew going in there I would have played probably top 3. And I then visited a very different school, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV, which is probably as polar opposite as you could get. about a mile away from the Strip in Las Vegas, 30,000 students, a lot bigger budget, a lot better team, more established team, and so I visited those two, and it was good to see such different schools.
And why did you pick Gardner Webb over UNLV?
I think my choice was a lot different from what a lot of people would have chosen. I feel like a lot of people just choose the best school that reaches out to them, or the best ranked school, or maybe historically the best school on paper. But Pippa really not sold me, but pushed the idea of playing higher in maybe a school that wasn't ranked as high. And that appealed to me because even though I'm playing higher in my team, the thought of playing all those other guys from other schools week in, week out that are also playing top three, that's how I saw myself getting better. And I ended up playing two, which was kind of ideal for me because I had the number one guy to push me and train with him a lot. And obviously I wasn't top of the food chain there, so even the guys at 3 and 4 I'd have good practices with. So kind of being a bigger piece to the puzzle kind of was more what I was looking for. And Las Vegas, I was probably going in at 6, maybe 7 or 8, depending on how I settled. And I just thought that'd be a lot of pressure for me trying to settle because it's quite tough enough as it is. And also financially, it was just a lot tougher to do that. So I was really happy that I made that choice.
And once you chose Gardner Webb, what further assistance did you receive, like from Pippa with the admissions, housing, insurance, that type of thing? So once you've, signed that contract, then having someone to kind of guide you through the next steps.
Yeah, so I thought when I signed that was pretty much it, but I was wrong. I was actually a lot more paperwork, but Pippa and the coach actually worked really well together to make it as pain-free for me as possible. But yeah, all the admissions, making sure I was eligible, coach helped me a lot with that. But yeah, Pippa definitely worked with the coach, so it was kind of like I was part of a team. Making sure visa was all good, ready to go, just checking everything over was really thorough. I had no problems with that side of things, so that was really good. She made that a lot easier for sure.
So I also played college tennis at ODU, and I remember, my first day a week on campus. Can you remember what your first thoughts were early on, in your college career, and how long it was before you really felt like settled in?
Well, it was a bit of a shock to the system when I went. Obviously, it's a big culture shock being away from your family and your kind of familiar setup and surroundings for such a long time. But I would say after the first month and a half, I'd started to settle in. The coaches and the professors and your teammates, they all try and keep you busy. So you kind of do have your work cut out for you as soon as you go. So I kind of tried to focus on that. But the tennis was definitely the biggest shock for me, how hard they trained, how consistently they trained at that level and intensity. And yeah, it was a bit of a shock, but I'd say about a month and a half, yeah.
And, was Pippa really good at staying in regular contact with you, kind of checking in on what your progress was like, not just tennis-wise, but also off the court?
Yeah, Pippa, I remember I was speaking to her probably weekly, I would say. She was making sure everything's good, I'm settling in fine, there were no scares or surprises. And I think not only I benefited from that, but Pippa did as well, because she's learning more once I'm actually there, part of the team. So yeah, she was definitely in touch with me and making sure I was all settled in, and it definitely helped for sure.
And after, a very successful freshman year at Gardner Webb, you maybe started to think about possibly moving to a bigger school. But tell us how you came about that and how you went about moving or transferring and that whole process.
Yeah, so I had a great freshman year. I got freshman of the year in my conference, which I was really chuffed about. And I did start to have thoughts about transferring after my first year, but I kind of believe in timing, and the number one guy that was playing ahead of me still had one more year left, so I thought I'll see one more year out and see how it goes. I still had a lot to prove. I felt like playing two. Most of the opponents I was playing were older and more experienced, so I still felt like there was a lot to learn. And yeah, I played with the number one guy basically most of my training sessions for that second year, and then as he graduated, I thought it would be a good time to kind of explore those options. And I wasn't 100% set on transferring, but at least looking at, you know, potential places that I could go to and just see what was out there, and if it fit, then great, but if not, then I've at least explored that route. So that's what I did after my second year.
Yeah, and I'm sure Pippa was a massive help with the transfer process, because I feel like it's, you know, quite scary going through that, you know, trying to make sure that you're in the rules and all of that with NCAA eligibility.
Yeah.
When the time came that you wanted to, you know, transfer, how was that discussing options of schools, and then obviously landing at Kentucky?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different, because when I was in England, you know, prior to college, I didn't really know anything about the system or schools. You know, I was just going off stuff you read online or what the coaches tell you, you know, and where everyone else signs. But after 2 years in America, you kind of know more coaches, and you know schools, and you know their reputations, and you just know more. So it was definitely a different process. But Pippa was actually surprised me a bit. I didn't think she'd help me that much after already going through that process with me the first time. But yeah, she definitely helped me narrow my search down once I entered the portal, and we had quite a lot of discussions about whether I should go to a big school or kind of make more of an incremental jump to still a bigger school, but not as much, and maybe play it safer. But I probably spoke to about 50 or 60 schools in the space of 1 to 2 months. So Pippa helped me narrow that down for sure. And yeah, she met my dad and spoke about Kentucky potentially, and proposed that idea. She knows the assistant coach, Matt, who's British, and yeah, Kentucky was just a perfect fit for me, and I'm so happy I went and took the chance and spent the next year at Kentucky and still improved, and yeah, had a very successful college career.
Yeah, so now we're going to speak about, obviously, University of Kentucky. Can you outline the differences you found between kind of the smaller D1 at Gardner Webb and then, you know, Kentucky, a massive SEC school? You know, I'm sure there's positives for both. You needed to start smaller at D1, kind of build your confidence and everything. But yeah, what would you say was the main differences?
Yeah, I think I definitely had to start at a small school. The way I would describe it to people when I speak about it now that are going through the college process is, in England, it's kind of easy to get stuck in the bubble here, and you don't really realise how good the level is out there and how different it is to the culture here. You know, there's no easy matches in America. It doesn't matter where you go. The training is always tough. They're always going to push you. So kind of learning that and understanding that and embracing that my first 2 years was, I kind of needed that to move on to the next level, to be honest. And I definitely wasn't ready to start at a big school. I think I needed to be playing matches and to be part of the top half of the lineup. I was definitely kind of more valuable in a sense that, you know, if I kind of needed to play, the coach kind of almost had to focus on me more in training, and kind of from a selfish point of view, I kind of wanted that because I wanted to improve. But I also loved the team atmosphere at a small school. You know, there was 2,000 students at my first school, so you're kind of forced to be close with your teammates because there's not really that many other choices. But yeah, I kind of wanted that when I still went to a big school, and I found that at Kentucky. And when I played the bigger schools in the kind of preseason matches at Gardner Webb, I noticed that those team atmospheres you don't often get at those big schools, because they kind of just go for individual players and ITF ranking, and don't really care as much about the team atmosphere. So I was really looking for that, and Kentucky had that, as well as the coaches as well. I thought Cedric, the head coach, played pro tennis, got to top 200 in the world, obviously super knowledgeable and has been at Kentucky a long time, and assistant coach Matt Gordon as well was coaching at Saddlebrook, Florida, with a few professionals as well. So he took his first coaching job at Kentucky and was just super motivated, and it was 100% the right fit for me.
And what would you say was your favourite memory from Kentucky?
It's got to be our dream run, my last year, my 5th year, making the final of NCAAs. It was something special, being the captain and going out like that, and doing it with my best friends, my brothers, and no one saw it coming. We believed, and yeah, we went pretty fast. It was cool to make history.
Finally, you graduated this summer. But before you had, you know, that role of captain, Talk about how you think that has impacted you now, kind of managing your pro career, and what, you know, skills that you picked up being captain, whether it's communication or just leadership, and now kind of taking that to now Bath, where you're based at now.
Yeah, I think before I became captain, I was kind of not necessarily selfish, but I was more just focused on myself and my role. And the mindset I kind of had was, if I take care of myself and my business, that's the best way to then help the team. So that was not necessarily selfish, but more focused on myself. And then when I became captain, I realised that I had a broader kind of responsibility, making sure everyone on the team was okay, kind of bridging the gap between the coaches and the players, and proposing ideas and lots of things off the court as well. So I feel like it kind of prepared me for pro tennis now, because, you know, I don't have a manager or anything like that, or a team as such. So I'm kind of doing a lot of stuff off the court myself, such as scheduling and communicating with coaches and all that kind of stuff, tournament directors. So it definitely prepared me for that side of things. And yeah, I think I became a much better person for it as well, just communicating and seeing different perspectives, lots of things like that off the court, yeah.
And before we talk about Bath, I hear you also had a surprise visitor to the NCAA. So Pippa came out to support you and a bunch of other players, Matt, Johannes, Jacob Fernie, Louis Maxted, James. I mean, there was a lot of you guys. Yeah. How was that, you know, seeing her at NCAs?
Yeah, it was a surprise, actually, because Pippa usually messages me with stuff like that, and I was training, and I remember I turned around and I saw her. I was like, what are you doing here? So, yeah, she made an appearance, I think it was the day before quarterfinals in Illinois, and yeah, it was good to see her face. It was obviously been a while since I've seen her, obviously being out in America. Yeah, it was great to see her, and she was supporting us, and obviously all the other guys she's represented, and the other Brits as well. So yeah, it was pretty cool to see her out there.
And now you're home, you're at Team Bath, with a really good setup there with Coach Macca, Ian McDonald. What's the plan, and what are your goals for the upcoming year?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be at Bath. I think it's the only place right now for me that makes sense. I think there's a good focus group of players that are trying to achieve similar things to me, yet it's not overcrowded. So I feel like I get the attention that I'm looking for, with the support of other players as well, and getting the right training that I need. So the staff there is great as well. I'm really focused, and everyone works together seamlessly, all on the same goal. It's great, and it makes my life a lot easier. So I'm there full time right now, and I'm just trying to get my ranking up as high as possible. And the goal for me is to crack top 500 at first, and then after that kind of push on to do well in challenges and start to bridge that gap between challenges and qualifying of slams, for sure.
And last couple of questions. Mm-hmm. Do you have any, you know, advice for people that might be going through Stars and Stripes, the process, from, you know, what they should look for in a school, what they should do, you know, any tips for incoming, you know, freshmen that have just started at a new school in America, from D1 to D3, you know, what kind of advice would you give them? I
think the first thing is you've got to do your homework, right? Because there's so many schools out there. They all offer something different, and they're all going to sell you the dream that, you know, it's the right place for you and blah blah blah. So I think you have to do your homework. And also the thing I like to tell people is it's okay to transfer. Like, go somewhere that you know you're going to firstly make an impact, and secondly play matches, because that's how you're going to get better. You can train all you want, but if you're not playing matches and tough matches, then you're not going to improve as much as you'd like. So go to a school that you know you're going to play at, and you can always transfer up. That if you do well, that opportunity is always going to be there for you, now more than ever, because transferring's only become easier and easier throughout the years. Yeah, it's much easier to transfer up to a higher level than it is to almost go in too deep and then try and find a school that's a bit lower on your level. Because if you're not playing matches all the time and you're stuck at a level that's maybe too high, or higher than you thought it was going to be, it's going to be tough for you to get recruited, because those coaches aren't going to have a lot to go off. So definitely go where you're going to play, and just do your homework.
And final question.
And listen to Pippa.
The final question is, do you think that college tennis in the US is a stepping stone for the ATP Tour or WTA Tour?
100%. And I also think, on the flip side, it is a good way to progress and play tennis and not do that. I think it offers a lot more opportunities than it does in the UK. I think it's a great experience. I mean, if you speak to 10 people that went out to America, I guarantee you all 10 will say, you know, they would do it all over again. But yeah, 100%. If you want to play pro tennis, it gives you the opportunity with the facilities, the funding, the training, the amount of matches you play. You're just exposed to something different that isn't necessarily offered here in the UK. And yeah, from a financial point of view, it made perfect sense for me. And now I feel ready to go on the tour and have a good crack at it. So 100%, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today.